Yeah, you will never be worse than your first interview. So you can look up my first. Actually, I don't know if I have it on YouTube anymore, but I had my very first podcast interview. I would not recommend anybody watch it other than to simply see how not to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just everybody, it's a rite of passage. Everybody is
Yes.
going to make that faux pas with your microphone or with your camera angle, or you're going to say something maybe you shouldn't have said. It just make those first interviews, get them out of the way. And you also start to learn what people like to ask you. And you need to learn your elevator pitch. So at the end of every interview, someone's going to ask you, hey, tell us more about where we can find you and all the things you're doing. Like, I've not done a single podcast interview where somebody does not ask that.
Yep.
You start to learn how to pitch yourself, right? And so you slowly start to learn how to speak in front of a crowd, even if you're speaking on a microphone to a wall. It's a similar concept. And you slowly get better at it the more you do it. But you've got to do it the first few times and make those mistakes and be willing to be bad in order to improve your craft.
Yeah. And be willing to watch those interviews, as painful as that might seem. Interviews are almost obviously recorded, but probably most of the speaking engagements you have, you'll have an opportunity to watch yourself do it. And you might not want to. Nobody ever likes to watch themselves on video or listen to themselves on audio, but it really enables you to pick those things out that you don't want to do anymore and to keep doing those things that you do want to do. I mean, I think people are just as likely to have a happy surprise as an alarming surprise if they listen to themselves, because you can, for example, watch the interviewer's face or the audience's face, and you can see, oh, I see that they were really engaged when I was telling that story I didn't know. So committing to watch and listen to yourself is an important part of becoming a professional author speaker.
Right. And you also start to get an intrinsic feel for what works and what doesn't in real time. So when I'm on a podcast, I usually know when I'm hitting the bullseye. Like I know when I'm landing. I
Hmm.
also know when I'm not landing. And
Hmm.
then you can slowly start to adjust your message accordingly. And the only way you learn that is if you rewatch yourself and swallow your pride and re-listen to your voice for a little bit.
Yeah. And that idea of starting small is great. You know, you don't want to pitch yourself to the biggest podcast or the biggest speaking engagement, the biggest conference, whatever it may be, right off the bat, because first of all, you're probably unlikely to get it unless you have a track record. You know, the bigger the event, the more of a resume they're looking for from their speakers. And also, you don't want an enormous audience for those early efforts.